Social judgment theory. It seems like theorists never have enough time to elaborate on their own theories. According to Doherty, only near the end of his life did Egon Brunswick's probabilistic functionalism really begin to elaborate ideas on people's attitudes and judgments of specific situations in certain environments. His theory was eventually extended to what we now call social judgment theory. SJT, or social judgment theory, developed by Muzafer Sherif and Carl Hovland, is described as the perception and evaluation of an idea by comparing it with current attitudes. Its foundation is in social psychology. In Muzafer's thesis, titled A Study of Some Social Factors in Perception, 1935, his main question was, what is the psychological basis of social norms or frames of reference, and how do they work? Social judgment theory is an interpretive theory that typically examines human judgment and how we perceive things by placing them on a personal cognitive map. This cognitive map lets us and researchers see just how important we make certain messages that we read and hear. This theory often focuses on the morality aspect of judgments we make as human beings and how we persuade one another. Ideas constructed by Brambilla and Leach have expanded on this theory and suggest that the moral concepts be researched and studied more. What is helpful about this theory is that it analyzes the attitudes people have of an idea by comparing it with the current attitudes, as Sherif would say. This is social judgment involvement. Instead of having a completely fixed attitude on something, SJT views these attitudes in latitudes. Latitude of acceptance, the range of positions a person is ready to accept or agree. Latitude of non-commitment, the range of positions a person feels neutral or indifferent about. And latitude of rejection, the range of positions a person finds objectionable. For example, in our text, we hear a story about a gentleman who is against airline safety regulations and finds them unsafe. There is a video on YouTube showing this example with various students being asked the same questions that were asked to the gentleman in the airport. Here are their reactions.
First response. True.
Huh? I would say that's true.
Agree, because flying is a risk. So is life. Is that good?
Yeah. All right.
Flying is like anything else. Disagree. Yeah, I disagree because I don't know. Man. Depends if you're Denzel Washington.
I strongly disagree. That's a little crazy. I don't think any pilot would do that.
Strongly disagree. You can't drink and drive. Why? You shouldn't be allowed to drink and fly, right? Okay.
Agree. I guess it couldn't hurt, you know. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. Yeah, really, really love Jesus. Well, you have no other option if you're going over water, but I would say staying on the ground is a little bit more safer, so I would disagree with that statement.
I don't know. I'm just a deep thinker. I'm sorry. Can you ask the question one more time? I would disagree. I feel like it'll be safer to do the other one. All right.
I strongly disagree. I don't like planes, so I don't go on plane rides.
I strongly disagree there. World Trade Centers.
As you can see, in response to some of these questions, many students had no opinion that was strongly for or against airline-related questions or problems that may arise, whether that is because they haven't flown very much in their lifetime or if they just have a natural fear of flying. It shows you where their latitude of acceptance lies and where most of them have a latitude of non-commitment because it's really not relevant to them at the moment. A good way to determine which latitude our opinion leans towards is usually found in our level of ego involvement. Research usually will first look to find a level of ego involvement to see how important the issue is to us personally, and if we are a member of a group that stands for a specific viewpoint. Our text focuses on the example about the jittery airline passenger who believed airport security is not safe, and he is actually a member of International Air Safety Association, in which he lobbies for stricter airline safety regulations. An interesting part of this theory is also in attitude change and how it's possible, if possible at all. Judging new messages that enter the issue being discussed will either be placed close to our anchor, where we are firmly on the subject, and the closer they are to our anchor, the more likely we are to let the new ideas come into our latitude of acceptance. This could possibly move our attitude in the opposite direction, but not necessarily change it completely. The society that we live in today can still hold true to concepts constructed in social judgment theory, and what is interesting about this theory is that it can constantly be studied. However, our world has greatly changed even in the last 5 to 10 years when it comes to ways that we receive information and dissect it to form our own opinions about things and about current attitudes and issues. The main area of focus here would be the rise of the internet. Feeds on sites such as Facebook are specifically significant. For example, in this fake Facebook feud, the troublemaker begins with saying that he has something misguided and angry to say about a current event. Naturally, we are able to reply to said troublemaker and arguments ensue. Or just opinions are thrown out there and given for the troublemaker to go through. Half the time, the troublemaker doesn't even respond to the people that are chiming in or the lazy activist, or he just gets enraged by their responses, and they are certainly placed on his latitude of rejection. Conversations that lead to feuds and arguments ensue constantly when people try to sway one another to latitudes of acceptance and oftentimes get nowhere. Why do they still try to make the effort? More specifically, the profound effect that news pages on Facebook trigger these struggles between people in our culture is something that has not yet been acknowledged and examined through social judgment theory. Let's consider the first and second interpretive theory standards. Clarification of values and the new understanding of people are two standards which social judgment theory fails to fully uphold in our contemporary society. Firstly, Musafer's studies were created from the experiences that he had through turbulent years in Turkey and at the end of the Ottoman Empire. He was exiled and also recognized as a political activist that wished nothing more than for people to be able to live in peace and understanding with one another. His most infamous study is known as the Boys' Camp Study, in which a summer camp scenario was created with young boys about 11 and 12. Accounts for inter-group conflict, negative prejudices, and the stereotypes as a result of actual competition between these groups for desired resources occurred, and in the end were able to be a little more well resolved, but that was given the time that they were able to interact with each other at this said summer camp that was set up as a study. The vast majority of our message receiving comes from news sources and hardly any face-to-face conversations with people we don't desire to interact with. Usually these sources appear to us through our phones or computers. Social judgment involvement should have us concentrate on the reactions and attitude changes constructed by our cultural news as well as our interaction on these pages. Standard number 6, qualitative research, is perhaps the most important considering there is no research done in this subject area to reveal how these online forums affect people in our society, if they affect them at all. There's not even quantitative research to be found, let alone qualitative. One argument in particular that comes up often on Facebook news pages is police brutality. A perfect example of the ego involvement aspect of SJT is the Facebook users that have made pages to support or rally against their attitude on the controversial issues. Here we have an example that occurred at the beginning of 2015 in the sad case of Samantha Ramsey, who her family decided to file a lawsuit in wrongful death to sue the deputy that shot her leaving a field party the beginning of 2015. To the right, we have actual feed from the forum where one person's comment, receiving 158 likes, also had 32 replies. In the replying area, there are tons of opinions from people who mostly were not there or present at the time of said shooting or party. Most people don't even know the victim or the deputy, but they still take a side on the matter, considering their support for police officers or their rallying against police officers, saying that all police officers want to hurt their victims or hurt people that they come in contact with and take things out on them. As an example of ego involvement on these websites, you can see here 2 pages that were pulled up on Facebook and found in relation to this specific case of Samantha Ramsey and Deputy Brockman. Supporters of Deputy Brockman, family members, friends, and just an outpouring of community members who also have family members that are police officers in most cases, were the ones who liked I Support Deputy Brockman's community page. And then you have Remembering Samantha Ramsey's community page, which many people also joined, that were family, friends, or members of the same community where she grew up and went to high school. And you can see how these ego involvements alter their judgments because they have a place to go to where other people are also in agreement with their latitude of acceptance, and they definitely stay away from the opposite page because it falls into their latitude of rejection. All in all, social judgment theory is a useful theory, and it has the ability to go further in our new cultural standpoints.